even if it's not deliberate. I send blessings and peace on the one for whom we have gathered today, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to express our love and to think about how we express this love and live by that love. It's true that this ummah loves the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and it is true that no one can declare themselves a believer unless they love the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from the depths of their heart. Love, though, is not a static reality or just a verbal statement that is pronounced at times of religious hype, seasonal spirituality, or short-lived celebrations. It is, as the poet says, فَكَمْ فَاسِدٍ أَضْحَى بِهِ وَهُوَ صَالِحُ وَكَمْ بَاطِلٍ وَلَّى بِهِ وَهُوَ طَائِحُ رَسُولٌ لِأَسْرَارِ الْمُنَافِقِ فَاضِحُ أبان الهدى فالحق أبلج واضح وصان الورى فالعيش حلو مهنأ. With him many corrupt have turned righteous, and many a falsehood have gone away. A prophet whose insight unveils hypocrite secrets and make truth as clear as a day. With humanity protected, life is comfortable and sweet. به فاستنر إن تنتهر بك همة ولا تنتقد من دونه لك عزمة فكل ضياء دونه فهو دهمة بدا وبقاع الأرض ظلم وظلمة فأشرقت الأرجاء وانقشع الكرب. With his example and light, let your zeal grow, and inspiration in life stands for you. For any light other than his, you should know, is darkness creeping to the earth slow, for earth with him was lit complete. And as others say, ما الحب إلا لقوم يعرفون به وقد مارسوا الحب حتى هان معظمه عذابه عندهم عذب وظلمته نور ومغرمه بالراء مغنمه كلفت نفسك أن تقف مآثرهم والشيء صعب على من ليس يحكمه. Love is but for those in whom it is recognized. They turn it live, with it exercised. Its torture is treat, its darkness light. Its sweat is sweet, and bite is bright. You wish to tread and walk their way, a path is arduous enough for those who play. And as Abdullah ibn Mubarak said, he who's been given a degree of love but not an equal degree of awe and God-fearing is deluded. So, if we say that love remains lacking life, if we say that love remains inane, unless turned to a lived reality, how can this lived reality be moved from the theories of discussions and fancy speeches to the challenges and the difficulties that we face in life? Indeed, that is an essential question that I would like to take today briefly. For the past few centuries, Muslims have been consumed in ways of thinking that do not emerge from their tradition. Even those who claim clinging to the tradition or defending it have turned into frameworks of thought and ways of life that depart from the dictates of the tradition. So much so that we can comfortably say that Muslims need to rethink their ways of life and see how much secularized and mundane they have become. One of the areas where this worldly, secular way of thinking manifests the most is how we perceive the vicissitudes of life and the difficulties of the day. Problems facing us at individual and communal levels. This framework of perceiving life sees every problem, be it a loss of a job, children drifting away from religious life, a delayed, broken or a difficult marriage, or even larger events like loss of lives, personal or communal traumas. It sees all of these and perceives them within a framework of crisis. Muslims now see the challenges of life as crises, a time of intense difficulty or danger, a time when important, difficult decisions have to be made. This way of thinking is imbued with secularity in many ways. And I'm going to mention 4 ways. One It sees life in a very disruptive way, as it is made of series of crises or moments of intensity that are separated with intervals of relaxation. We start seeing life as made up of these moments of difficulty that are divided by the intervals of relaxation. During those relaxed periods, we tend to forget the challenge and become intellectually numb towards the nature of life. So we're always taken by surprise of the crisis that disrupts the flow of luxury and comfort. Second, it is surrounded by ambiguity and distrust. When we see life events as crisis, we think in a very ambiguous way. We're always anxious about the next torrent of blows, the next torrent of attacks, and live in uncertainty and distrust. Third, it triggers complaint and criticism. We live with that sense of criticism. Everyone is complaining about what they face. For such a life is always disturbing us at every moment of it. We try to settle, or every moment we start to relax. And fourthly, it informs and requires action. When we think of life as made up of crisis, we always turn to action. How should we act in order to face the crisis? Every time we're faced with a crisis, we think of an action. This action, which is indeed a reaction, features our personality and we become absorbed in life blows and problems. This framework of analysis, this way of seeing life, this way of dealing with life is very distant from the way the Prophet ﷺ lived his life and the way he taught us to live our life. Our tradition offers instead an alternative way of looking at life, seeing it in a different way. In this framework, our life does not really start here. We live many lives, one before this one that we have come to. It is called Alam al-Dhar or Alam al-Azal, a point in time where we were unmentioned thing, as the Quran calls us. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Truly, there was a moment in time when man was unmentioned thing. Another is this earthly life, this lowly life, عالم الأجل والأمل, or الحياة الدنيا, that lower life. And a third life that is in between, عالم البرزخ, where we move from this world to the next. And then finally, we have عالم الأبد, the final abode or eternity. Of these multiple lives that we live, this worldly life is known for its being dunya, which means easily achievable, low, short, and sojourn. It is always described in the Quran as amusement and diversion, adornment and boasting to one another and competition. But this should not distract us away from the true feature of this life, that it is a tribulation. It is a test. And this is the framework that we have to look at it. What happens when we start analyzing life as a tribulation? What happens when we start internalizing the words of the Quran that it is who created death and life as a test? What happens to us? What happens when we start seeing life through the lens of tribulation, which we see everything around us as a test? We get, in face of the 4 features that I mentioned before, 4 solutions. Number 1, our earthly life becomes whole. It becomes undivided. It becomes connected. Because we see all its turns as tribulations, tests, whether comfortable or irritable. All its ups and downs are perceived as connected moments where Allah is sending us a message. A loss is no more a loss because it is perceived within a larger series of events rather than an isolated moment. Fear, hunger, loss of wealth, loss of life, tightness, illness are perceived as tests in as much as strength, satiation, abundance, long life, expansiveness, and health. Life is one whole while we live its moments and experiences and experience its different shapes. We are not deluded by its here and now. And second, we become relaxed or at least content and unexpected. This constant sense of rida is something that we always need to work on until it becomes a second nature to us. Al-Hasan ibn Ali radiallahu anhu was told that Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu said, "Poverty is more beloved to me than richness, and illness is more beloved to me than health." He said, "May Allah have mercy on Abu Dharr, but I say, he who trusts Allah's good decisions will wish for what Allah has gifted." When life is perceived within the framework of tribulation, you move with surety and trust. Thus, future does not disturb you anymore because it does not carry surprises. And third, a person does not need to complain. Rather than that, they turn into something called dua, which by its own word is a very positive concept, which delivers invitation, calling upon. There is a disparity between the root of dua and complaint. The root of complaint is shakwa, which, if we go back to the dictionary, it comes from the stem of sheen and kaf. And these two letters coming together indicate doubt and being torn between two entities, being torn between the present and the future, between what we expect and what is coming our way, between what we want and what God gives us. While dua, which actually comes from the root da'awa or da'a, confers the meaning of pushing things away, as if you are pushing your troubles away by turning to the source of strength and the source of power, freeing yourself of the worry about the future. We can say that between shakwa and dua, there is definitely positivity and negativity. And fourth, we are no more triggered to react or to be reduced to external actions. We are rather turned into translation, because tribulation requires translation, understanding. To a background of understanding the larger scheme of life as a tribulation, our small tests function to activate our intellect, to read what message Allah is sending our way. This understanding takes away the pain of deprivation, which Ibn Ata'illah Sikandari talks about, as he says, deprivation causes you pain because you lack understanding. For if you understand God's intent, if God opens for you the gates of understanding, deprivation will turn into giving. It is then, and only then, that patience will be seen as an action. Patience becomes an action. That silence will become a response, not anymore shying away. That dua will be seen as a plan, and spiritual discipline will be seen as a revival project, not as quietism. But in the absence of this understanding, we will all panic for an action, and our actions will be reduced to physical or intellectual actions that are all entrapped in this world. And we are deluded to believe that humans are in charge, even if we say by our tongues that God is in charge. That remains only a lip service. In the hadith narrated by Sayyidina Suhaib ibn Sinan radiallahu anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Truly amazing is the affair of a believer. His affair is always khayr, and none but a believer gets that. When he is hit by prosperity, he is thankful, and that is khayr. And when he is hit by adversity, he is patient, and that is khayr for him." This hadith, which I intentionally delayed to the end and to the conclusion of my speech, tells us of the different mentality of a believer who perceives life as a connected reality, sees all its moments, ease and difficulty, adversity and prosperity, as ones that are part of a tribulation that requires a translation. This translation may vary in its wording, shukr and sabr. It might be different things, ghina and faqr, but the dominant tone and the underlying foundation is rida and mahabba. This is the exhibition of love which the Prophet ﷺ taught and lived by, and by which we need to live by if we want to exhibit love in every turn of our life. And I would conclude with a hadith that we all know, the hadith of the 3 signs that found in a person, he will or she will taste the sweetness of faith. But putting it in almost, trying to put it in an English verse. 3 is found in 1. Sweetness of Iman is rightly felt. Love God and the Prophet, above them none. And for God's sake, love for others is kept. And past disbelief you deeply do shun, as hateful as in fire one wish to have dwelt. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding of the deen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.